Bruchim aboim b'shem Hashem. What a great schus that we're all united throughout the entire world on virtually every continent in the study of Pireki Avos. I would like to thank Torah Anytime, that wondrous organization that has spread Torah throughout the entire world. Their efforts on behalf of the Torah, lahagdil Torah la'adira, are unsurpassed by anyone. May they continue their work. May chayil al choyel mitoch hachava. I would also like to thank Chazaq, that organization which has performed miracles. The organization, like the Nevi'im of old, go to communities, spread Torah, bring people closer, Lavim Shabbat take children out of public schools and put them into yeshivas and Beis Yaakov. How wonderful it is that there's an organization as Chazaq that cares about Klal Yisrael and does not stop night or day their efforts on behalf of the community. May they continue. May chayil el choyel mitoch hachava. Our Mishnah today is Pireki Avos, Perek Beis, Mishnah Tez Zayin. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, Rabbi Yehoshua says, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya was from the great Tanoim. He was from the great Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. When they saw him, Rebbe said on him, Ashrei Yoladtoi, happy are those that gave birth to this great Chacham, this great Tzaddik. We know that he had great Chachmas in Torah, and even in Cheshbon, Torah Cheshbon, he was also quoted many times. The Gemara tells us in Tainus that the daughter of the Caesar, of the Caesar, once saw him. And she said to him, I don't understand. How can such great Chachma, such wisdom, be in such an ugly vessel? She made a disparaging remark concerning the looks of Rabbi Yehoshua. At that time, Rabbi Yehoshua says, let me ask you a question. Your father, the Caesar, has great, great wine, correct? She said, of course, the best. What kind of vessels does he keep that wine in? Well, he keeps it in like plain clay vessels. Rabbi Yehoshua said, ugly clay vessels? The king? Royalty? He keeps his wine in those types of vessels? Go home and tell him he should use the finest silver and the finest gold vessels. That's where he should keep his wine. So she went home and she said, listen, I just came back and I was told that you should not be storing your wine in those clay vessels. They're ugly, they're unsightly. Put them in silver, put them in gold. And so the king did. And you know what happened to the wine? It all turned sour. The Caesar said to his daughter, who gave you this advice? She said, it was that great wise man of the Jews, Rabbi Yehoshua. So the emperor summoned him, and Rabbi Yehoshua came before him and said, why did you tell that to my daughter? We need to have the simple clay vessels in order to preserve the wine, in order to keep it. You have to be very careful with how wine is stored. Rabbi Yehoshua said, I only wanted to teach her a lesson, that it is not the outside, it's not the external, it's not the chitzonius that one has to look at. It's what's inside. She got all bent out of shape, all upset, when she saw that there was great chachma in me. And Rabbi Yehoshua said, maybe I am not the most sightly vessel that there is on earth, but you can believe me that the chachma satira, is stored very well within me. How we understand that it is important in our world, in the hashkafa of Torah, through the Torah lens, that we only give importance to that which is pnimius, the inside, the internal, not the external, not which is the chitzonius. When I was in yeshiva, so there was a man, and he was a worker in the area, and he had a son. The son, unfortunately, in those days, had already gone off the derech. He left the yeshiva, he was out in the streets. Needless to say, he was drifting further and further away from Yiddishkeit. The father came in one day, he saw me learning in the Beis Medrash. It was about 7 o'clock in between Sidorim. He walked over to me And he said, could I ask you a question? I said, yeah, sure. He said, I tell you the truth, I don't know what to do. I got a son. The son's not interested in davening. The son's not interested in learning. The son already left yeshiva. I don't really know what he's up to and what he does, but I can tell you one thing. I see the tefillin bag. The zekel stays in its place. It does not leave, meaning that he doesn't wear tefillin. I said to him, maybe your son could learn a little bit. If he could learn a little bit Torah, so the light of Torah, we're told by Chazaq, can bring a person back. He looks at me, you learn in yeshiva, right? I said, yeah, that's what I do. He says, you don't understand. He will not learn. He's not interested in it. And even if he was interested, who's going to learn with a guy like that? I took the opportunity. I said to him, I would be happy to learn with him. I would be happy to. If you will tell him that somebody is waiting in this building for him, maybe it will have an effect on him. The father said, you're telling me the truth? You would really learn with him? B'chavod, it would be my honor. The father ran out. About a week later, I almost forgot about the whole incident. Sure enough, about 7 o'clock in between Sidorim, I was in the Beis Medrash. I happened to be sitting there learning something. All of a sudden, I see the father come to the door with a young man. Needless to say, the young man had a rough look about him. He certainly was not dressed as the other bochrim in the yeshiva. He came in, he brought his son, and he said to him, I don't even know your name, but this is my son. My son is a very, very good guy. He may not look like it. I wish the father didn't say it. But he is a very good guy. In fact, his name is the name after my grandfather, who was a very big tzaddik. I said, what was his name? I will tell you. His name was Ruvain. And I have a special spot for him. I said, Ruvain, I can't tell you how happy I am to meet you. Would you like to sit down? I'm just about to learn something. We could learn for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever you'd like. Ruvain said, well, I tell you the truth, I told Pop I would sit down, but, okay, as long as it's not too long, I'll sit with you. He sat down, the father left. I don't know exactly what happened, but we hit it off together. I learned with him, and in fact, I learned with him a shaila and a tshuva, a question and answer from the famous Rav Oshri of shailas and tshuvas mimamakim, things that are very gripping, things that are omei beruma shalolam, shailas that can inspire a person for an entire lifetime. That's what I chose to learn with Ruvain. We learned 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We learned about a half an hour. And I noticed that the father was standing by the door peeking in. He couldn't believe that his son was still seated there. And so Ruvain came back. We made it for twice a week. One day, I was sitting there in the Beis Medrash, and one of the Balabatim came in and asked at what time we're going to have Mariv. When are we going to daven? And I told him what time it was going to be. He left. Later at Mariv, he came over to me and he said, what was that other man inside the Beis Medrash for? So I told him, we were learning together. So he said to me, do you think that you should bring him inside the Beis Medrash? I said, where should I learn with him? On the football field? Where would you like me to take him? On the street corner to talk with him? I know, but the way that he looks, I told that man, our Gemara, our piece of Talmud, you can never tell what a person is by the outside. You can never tell the depth of their neshama, the godless, the greatness that could be inside of a person merely by looking on the outside, the external, that which is chitzonius. One of the memras, one of the things that Rabbi Yeshua said was when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, so the Chachomim said from that day on, no meat and no wine. There won't be meat for Klal Yisrael anymore, no wine, Zeichel L'Chorban. However, Rabbi Yeshua protested, and he said, no, Lefi she'ein goizrin gezer al hatzibor, she'ein hatzibor yecholin lamod boi. You can only be goizer, you can only decree something on the tzibur, on the community, that they can withhold, that they can do, that they can upkeep. But this they can't. So, Rabbi Yeshua won, and today we're allowed to eat meat and to drink wine. Now there are certain things that we don't do, Zeichel L'Chorban, and Bez Hashem, we will have a chance to get into that in the coming weeks. Also, a very interesting idea that the great Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya was able to institute, and that is that we have an idea that the individuals should always be careful during the time of Chorban Beis HaMikdash in order to make sure, of course, to fast on the days that we have to. And the one day that is very important is, of course, Tisha B'Av. Now, actually, it was that Tisha B'Av should be 2 days, the 9th and the 10th, because the majority of the Beis HaMikdash burnt on the 10th. It's a question, do we go after the Haskalah or do we go after the end? Which is more bitter? So actually we should have to fast 2 days. However, ein goizrin gezer al hatzibor, there was never a decree made on the tzibor, she'ein roiv hatzibor yecholin lamod bo, that the majority of the community would not be able to hold to. And because of that, we only fast on the 9th of Av, and then the 10th of Av, we have certain restrictions that remain in place, either until the morning or until Chatzos. So what did he say? Ayin hara. We start with ayin hara, the evil eye. We have to be very careful with our eyes. Even our eyes, our machshavos, chas v'shalom, can harm another person. Lo aleinu v'al kol beis Yisrael. We have to be very careful. Ayin hara means that an individual is jealous of another person, an individual fagins another person, they don't like that that person has atzlacha, and they concentrate on giving that person an evil eye. Now, it's not so simple to give someone an evil eye, chas v'shalom, and the person that does give an evil eye, lo aleinu v'al kol beis Yisrael, that person will suffer. That's not simple. But, be that as it may, we are careful in terms of ayin hara. One, we're not ostentatious. If you're going to buy the car, don't buy the car that is screaming while it goes down the street and everybody is oohing and aahing. When a person does certain things in this world, they should be extremely careful not to attract too much attention. It should be nice, but not, chas v'shalom, as it says in Hebrew, it should not be taking out the next person's eyes. We have to be very careful. We want to do things that are quiet, that are humble, things that are going to show our modesty, not things in which we show off. A phenomenal shayla was asked of the great Goin Rabbi Yashav, Posek Ador. They asked Rabbi Yashav, a father came in, and he wants to put his son in the Chidon. The Chidon in Eretz Yisrael is a Tanakh, major exam, a contest in which people come from all over the world in order to participate. The winner of the Chidon is considered to be an unbelievable Chacham. That person is considered to be one of the most outstanding in the generation. So he comes to Rabbi Yashav and he says, I would like to enter my son, that my son should compete in the Chidon. However, he said, I am afraid that should he win, perhaps it will be ayin hara. Ayin hara, chas v'shalom. Rabbi Yashav gives him a lengthy tshuva, and at the end says, if this is your consideration, and there is a chashash, so perhaps, he didn't paskin that he has to, perhaps it is better not to put him in to the competition to begin with. A great singer, a singer that is known in Klal Yisrael today, Mordechai ben David, once told me that there was a son that came to him together with his mother, and he wanted to go on the stage and he wanted to make a whole thing. He knows how to sing well. Mordechai ben David says, if you will do your son a favor, you'll make sure not to put him in the major spotlight. There's a lot of chachma. We want to be careful. We are a people, atznei aleches, that we go quietly and we go with modesty. So the first is that we try to avoid the public eye in terms of everybody talking about the individual, everybody talking about the car or the house or whatever. We are careful in that. The second is, of course, that we don't call up two brothers. You make a simcha, so you have a problem because you want to call one brother up after the other. You got a lot of brothers, or the father or the brother. We don't call them up. The Or HaChaim says the reason is because ayin hara, they say, oh, look, that guy and that guy and that guy, oh, very nice. Chas v'shalom, it shouldn't be an ayin hara. Even Oezer says, we also don't make two chasonim at one chuppah for the same reason. How unbelievable this is, that even it goes so far as the minhag of upsharon, to cut the little boys here when he gets to be 3 years old. They're all different minhagim. I wish we would have time just to give a share on upsharon, but we don't have the time. So what happens? It is a minhag yoshan. It is an old and cherished minhag. It's a custom that they take the child, they wrap him up in a talis, and the father and the parent brings the child to the cheder, to the room where the Rebbe is going to have the honor to take a few cuts of the hair to make the upsharon. And there are different things that are done. The child reads the Aleph Beis, gets the pair of tzitzis, wash netilas yadayim, says Shema, Torah Tziv. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. And at one time we should discuss it. However, it's interesting. You cover up the child with the talis. Why? Very interesting. It's brought down in the Sefer HaTamim so that there's no ayin hara. Everybody sees, oh, look, the beautiful child with the locks coming down. Whoa, unbelievable. In order to avoid ayin hara, you cover up the child. The Gemara tells us that we should also be in the habit that an individual should not arouse any public envy, any public jealousy. And because of that, we should say, B'li ayin hara. When something good goes on, we should say, B'li ayin hara. Or ken ayin hara, as my Bubba would say. Shouldn't be any ayin hara. That is a person that is careful. And it's also created from machshavos. We always want to be on the good side of people so that they should have positive thoughts. We're mispalel that all machshavos should be good from everybody else when we walk down the street, when we're out in the streets of this world. A very interesting incident happened with Baba Sali. Baba Sali, the great tzaddik and goin, started in Morocco, came to Eretz Yisrael, Netivot. So when he was a little child, he came home. And his father saw that he was very upset. So he asked him, Yisrael, what's the matter? So he says, I have to tell you today that one of the children picked a fight with me in the class. And the child insulted me. The father said, and what did you do? Baba Sali lowered his eyes. He said, I cursed him. The father said, Yisrael, your mouth has a power. In your entire life, never give a klala, never curse, only bless. And for the rest of the long and productive life of the great tzaddik Baba Sali, he never ever cursed. He only blessed Klal Yisrael, and his mouth had a great power because those brachot, those blessings, came true. So we should be careful because the words of our mouth, our thoughts, have a profound impact on the world. A skula for a person who wants to be careful from ayin hara is to say, Vani berov chazdecha ova v'secha. I, in your abundant mercies, Hashem, with your great chesed to everyone. Another skula is that when a person leaves or they come in and they go to kiss the mezuzah, they should say, Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Ale Ayin. That is another skula. A third skula is that whatever we do, it should be L'Shem Shamayim. Many times people will ask me, what could they do if they're afraid of an ayin hara? So there are many things to do. I have a 2-line tefillah that could be said, as it says that an individual can speak away an ayin hara. Chas v'shalom lo alenu kol beis Yisrael. We shouldn't be nervous. We shouldn't be upset about it. We should always be careful in everything that we do. But there is a little tefillah just in case a person is upset. So the first is ayin hara. The second that we come to is yetzer hara. Yetzer hara, the evil inclination. A person has to always be careful about the yetzer hara, because the yetzer hara, the Orach Chaim says, is somebody that wants to get into our life. It can get into our life in the craziest ways that we may not even understand that it's approaching us. It's like the guy that comes to the door. And the guy that comes to the door knocks on the door and says, excuse me, I want only to be able to keep my hat. I don't want achnosas orchim. I just want to put my hat. I see that you have some nails in the beginning of the house. I just would like to put my hat up inside. Do you mind? Achnosas orchim. Goim lechasadim. That's Klal Yisrael. All the guy wants to do is put his hat on the nail inside the door. What harm in that? You say, of course, please put it on. The guy puts his hat on. All of a sudden, throughout the day, we get a knock on the door. Excuse me, could I get my hat? Okay. Excuse me, could I put my hat back? Yeah, okay, excuse me. All time during the day, all time during the night. There it says that the person makes himself so habitated in your house that soon he is toifes makom. He has a place in your house. Soon he's there more than you are. And then he has a place where he can occupy the house, even to the point where he might make it so uncomfortable that people of the house are not comfortable staying there anymore. So's the yetzer hara. He comes and he says, I only want a little bit. I only want you to do something small. When you were little, so you used to do this minig. It's very important. Whenever you had a tefillin on, you never said devarim b'teilim. You're always very careful. You never said any words that were not necessary. So if you say a couple of words, is it issa d'oraisa? It's not an issa d'oraisa. It's an issa d'rabbanan. So you need to say something, so you say something, so no big deal. So the person says, okay, I'm older now, I could say a few words. And the individual does. Or the person, they're on vacation somewhere. And they're very careful when they're in their house. They're makbid. On whatever they're makbid, they're very careful. They're insistent on a certain thing. When they're away, so all of a sudden Yetzer says, you know what? You're on vacation right now. Come on, chill out. Live a little bit. Oh, you're makbid in the house. Of course, everybody's makbid in the house. Everybody's very careful. But you're on vacation. You're able to do what you want. So the person is a little bit less nizher. They're a little bit less careful. That's all the Yetzer needs. That is all the evil inclination needs in order to enter into a person's house and take them over. The Baal Shem Tov said, that's the way of the Yetzer hara. In the beginning, he just wants to have just one aver, the little finger. Okay. And by the time he's done, he's only happy when he's taken over the entire body. A person has to be ever vigilant, to be on guard from the Yetzer hara. Any machination of the Yetzer hara, any entry that we give the Yetzer hara into ourselves, into our lives, he's not happy. You give him an inch, he takes a mile. Believe me, he is not happy with anything. That is the modus operandi of the Yetzer hara. And you can never tell. Because the Talmud says, how does the Yetzer hara look? Hey, give me a profile. Let me see his picture. So it says you can't tell. Sometimes he's old. Sometimes he's young. Sometimes he looks like a tzaddik. Sometimes he looks like a rasha. Sometimes he's this way. Sometimes he's that way. He's constantly alluding. He's constantly not allowing us to understand exactly who the Yetzer Hara is. So the way that a person has to control the Yetzer Hara is to be vigilant, is to be on guard, to know if you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. If you give him the littlest space, he's going to move in. There was an individual that came into me, and that person was such a good person. And the person I knew for quite a few years. I hadn't seen them in a long time. He comes in and he says, I'd like to talk with you. I said, yes, how can I help you? He says, well, I have a little problem with the Yetzer Hara. Most people don't frame it that way, but he says, I have a little problem with the Yetzer Hara. I said, what happened? So he says, well, I tell you the truth. I began to look at technology in the world. Technology is a bracha. Technology brings Torah into the world. But there's also a second side to it. Eitz HaChaim, what is it? Eitz HaDas, Tov v'Ra. The tree of knowledge is great. It had a great side to it, but also not such a great side. So I allowed myself once a week just to use the technology for something that I thought was not a great breach, but just a small little thing. Unfortunately, it began to get me more involved and more involved and more involved. And now I got a big problem. How do I get out of it? So there are many things that a person can do. One great way is, as it says in Chazaq in Kiddushin, Kach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar Lehem LiYisrael. Hashem said, my children, Bnei Yisrael, you who are living today in our generation, Barasi Yetzer Hara, I created the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is here in order to make us steig, in order to make us grow. The Yetzer Hara comes, and when I can be miskaber, when I can overrule the Yetzer Hara, when I can be strong and get the Yetzer Hara weak, at that time I am given the greatest schar in the entire world. A person that can be Omen B'Nisayon, an individual that is able to withstand a test, trials and tribulations. That person will be given schar le'ol meyad. Barasi Yetzer Hara. Hashem said, I created the Yetzer Hara. Ubarasi lo Torah tavlin. I created the Torah as the antidote to the Yetzer Hara. If a person has the Yetzer Hara, let them learn. No matter how much they're going to try to control it, they need the koach of Torah behind it. They need the power of learning. The power of learning in our lives, even for 2 minutes, even for 5 minutes, helps us to grow. That power of Torah is bigger than anything in this entire world. When a person learns, the entire world becomes theirs. They're learning the Torah, and they mention Rav Ashi. They mention Rav and Abaye. Rav and Abaye is sitting together with them and learning. When they're learning Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal is together with them. When they are learning the Nomeli Melech, the Heilige Rebbe Reb Meilech is sitting together, learning together with them. When they're learning Kedushas Levi, Reb Levi Yitzchak Bar Ditchev comes to their home. Mi Yodeya, the great Zechus in all of this. They're learning from the Alter from the Varduk. The Alter from the Varduk is staying with them. The Ribbon Shalom is learning with them. At that time, anything that they would like to ask for, they can ask, because that is the power of the Torah that they learn. All of the Chachmei Yisrael, it wasn't the fact that they were miracle workers. Come, I'll do a miracle, I'll show you this, I'll show you that. It was the koyach of Torah. My great Rebbe, Reb Simcha Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Or Elchanan, he told me that his father, the sainted Goin Reb Elchanan Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, Hashem Yimkam Damai, the great tzaddik, when someone would come to him and ask him a question, and he didn't have an answer right away, he would take out a sefer, he would begin to learn, he would be ma'ayin. When he would close the sefer, he would have the answer to give to the person. Torah Kedosha gives us our power. And finally, we end up Sinas Habrios. This is the third thing in the Mishnah, Sinas Habrios. What is Sinas Habrios? Sinas Habrios is hate. It's when a person does not love their fellow people with the love that they should have it. Sinas Habrios is when a person understands that the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. What was the reason? Because of Sinas Chinam. It's equal to the 3 Averos Chamuros of the first Beis HaMikdash, equal to Avodah Zarah, Shvichas Damim, murder, Giloy Arayos, immorality. So who thinks, you know what, I hate that guy. Why? I never liked him. Someone told me I never liked that guy. When he was younger, I didn't like him. You know what? I don't like him today. It's the same, whatever they told me, right? Chas v'shalom. Sinas Chinam is not something that a person is allowed to have. Sinas Chinam is not, I'm allowed, I love most people, but that guy, that girl, I can't stand her. When they walk in the room, I just got to get out. I can't remain. I can't stay in one place, so I got to get out of there. I just can't take them. Chas v'shalom. What that person is doing is worse. Avodah Zarah, bowing down, Zeus, Mecca, all of the Avodah Zarahs, it's worse. Shvichas Damim, going around killing people, certainly not a good idea, right? Sinas Chinam, just as bad. Gili Arayos, immorality, how terrible. It's a chorban for the world. Yet, Sinas Chinam equals it. So how do I look at it? I got to love everybody in the world. I have to bring the love out in my heart. My heart has to be overflowing with that great love for everyone. Everyone who is my friend, everybody who may not be my great friend. I got to outpour my love. I got to make sure that my heart is overflowing. I'm not just going to do a chesed, a nice thing, a favor for those people that I like, for those people that are close to me, those people I grew up with, those people from my city. I have to be close and give myself and give of my chesed to everyone, even the person that I don't like, even the person that does not find chen in my eyes. That is the important idea that is stressed in Sinas Habrios, especially during this time when we got to work on it. We got to love every Yid. Anybody who insults another Yid, who thinks bad about another Yid, even if they think that they have a reason for it, that person is over an Aveira. The person that goes on the blogs, Chas v'shalom, the person that writes about others, the person that says Lashon Hara, or writes editorial, or sends in, that person is over Isurim, and the place that prints it, and the website that contains it, is over Isurim. Don't go and then say, V'lushalayim ercha b'rachamim tashuv, Hashem, rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, she'yibana Beis HaMikdash v'meirav yameinu. Don't cry. Don't cry. If you're destroying it, if you're taking it down, so then don't come back later and cry. Build the Beis HaMikdash. Love every Yid. Love everybody. Love the person that you can't take. Love the person that just rubs you the wrong way. Love the person that irks you. You'll be surprised. If you show them love, there'll be a lot different coming back to you. The Heilige Kosover said that not only do you feel a person's love, when you talk with them and they love you, you feel it back. Kamayim, just like the water, elaponim, kein levadam el adam. Just like the water is to face, so is the heart of man to man. You got to know that the Kosover says, if somebody gives to you a present, they gave to you a present. There's an individual that lives in Lakewood, New Jersey, and they sent to me a very dear present. And they always send to me before Yom Tov a special sefer. Says the Kosover, when you use that sefer, when you use even the Dover Gashmi, that the person, the materialistic item that the person has sent you, you feel their love. And that in turn makes that you love them back. We should always work in this world on loving each other. With love, we can accomplish a world of good. Ava turns two people into one. It's the same gematria as echad. May all of us work during this time to achieve greater levels of Ahavas Yisrael. The Ger Rebbe once said, I wish that I would love the greatest tzaddik as much as Hashem loves the greatest Rasha.